So the year is 1912, and there's a murderer on the loose smashing people to death in their sleep with an axe. Investigators are running around like chickens with their heads cut off, playing a game of cat and mouse with the killer. For the Villisca Axe murder, there are 3 prime suspects: a jealous senator, a shady hitman, and a perverted preacher. Everybody, let's grab a cup of coffee and dive into whodunit. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Coffee and the Creeps. I'm your host, Maxwell, and with me is my wife, co-host, and fellow creep, Renae. How you doing, baby?
Hey, guys. What's up?
Today, we're going to be digging into part 2 of the Villisca Axe Murders, where we will be discussing some of the prime suspects in the case, as well as some of the modern paranormal investigations associated with the murder house. So if you guys have not seen or listened to the first episode in this 2-part series, I recommend that you do so if you're not familiar with the case or if you guys just need a refresher. However, let's begin with a recap of part 1 of the story, which is the overall narrative of what occurred the night of the murders as well as the following morning. So the Moores were a family of 6: Father Josiah, Mother Sarah, and children Herman, Catherine, Boyd, and Paul. And on June 10th, 1912, the entire Moore family was found dead along with 2 girls that were staying with them as guests overnight. Now, not only were they found murdered, but the crime was committed with the backside of an axe, which was used to bludgeon all of the victims to death. The investigation was conducted by City Marshal Hank Horton, who was the individual to discover the bodies. Now, despite the presence of law enforcement, around 100 of the townspeople flooded the murder scene, disrupting the investigation by doing acts such as taking photos, spreading fingerprints, and even stealing parts of the body, such as bone fragments. Now, eventually, it was able to be determined that no vital evidence existed within the house that could lead to investigators to narrow down a suspect. Now, this eventually led to the case going cold and unfortunately remaining unsolved to this day. However, there were suspects that the police had, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So despite the presence of very little amounts of evidence, the investigators were still able to gather some suspects to the murder. Now, many of these leads did end up leading to dead ends. However, 3 primary suspects still remain to this day that people talk about and debate over. The first being Frank F. Jones. Before the committing of the murders, both Frank Jones and Josiah Moore were actual colleagues. It was believed that Frank Jones was the boss of Josiah Moore at Jones's own farm supply company. However, later on in their association with one another, Josiah Moore ended up breaking off from Jones's company and decided to start his own farm supply business, which later on became widely successful. And Josiah accumulates so much success that he ends up becoming a vital competitor against Frank Jones's company, and even actually comes to the point where he takes away some of Jones's own clients. And we can obviously see where this is going, guys. So bad blood is accumulating between the two. And that's one of the main reasons why investigators back then believed that Frank Jones could have had some kind of vendetta against Josiah Moore. Even to the point where he could decide to have possibly killed him and his family in order to eliminate any kind of legitimate competition in their field.
That's pretty serious.
Yeah, and petty. Stupid, if that's real. So the townspeople of Villisca even say that the blood was so bad that they would avoid walking on the same side of the street as one another. So this problem was very obvious to everyone, and it was not just made up to make Frank Jones just like a suspect to point a finger at. It's also even believed that Josiah could have possibly been having an affair with Frank Jones's daughter-in-law. However, not much information is given out about this, so this can only be speculated. But despite all of these speculations being in place, there remained to be any lack of hard evidence back then in order to convict Jones of any kind of guilt as the murderer. However, there is another way that Senator Frank Jones could have contributed to the murder without actually committing it. So private investigator James Newton Wilkerson was a detective at the Burns Detective Agency of Kansas City. Now, Wilkerson had many suspicions of who the murderer of the Villisca incident could have been. However, one of the biggest hypotheses was that Frank F. Jones could have hired a man by the name of William Mansfield to commit the crimes rather than getting his own hands dirty. Now, Wilkerson believed that Not only Mansfield committed the murders in Villisca, but additionally, he could have been responsible for a murder of a family in Powell, Kansas, 4 days after committing the Villisca murders, as well as another murder 2 years later involving Mansfield's wife, infant child, father-in-law, and mother-in-law in Blue Island, Illinois. Now, Wilkerson notes, at all three of these murders, they all had strangely close similarities with one another. All the victims were covered with bed sheets after being bludgeoned to death with an axe. Every foot of every bed had an oil lamp. Every window was found covered. The axes were found wiped clean. Guys, is this sounding familiar?
Mm-hmm.
Every kitchen possessed a bowl of bloody water where the killer was suspected to have used to clean his hands. However, investigators were having a hard time being able to pin it on anybody because no fingerprints were being able to be found at the crime scenes of any of these murders.
That's really similar though. There's a lot of details that are identical.
Exactly.
It's weird.
And it could have just been their poor fingerprint or forensic technology
or
back then.
In last week's episode, people just destroyed evidence, walking through and taking stuff.
Exactly. It was very, very sloppy, for sure. So although all of this is taken into account, and it's really hard to being able to pin it on somebody, there still may be room for evidence to pin the Villisca murders to William Mansfield. Witnesses from Clarinda, Iowa, which is a nearby town to Villisca, claim that they saw Mansfield boarding a train the morning of the murders, saying that he walked from Villisca to Clarinda to board that train that morning. It would be later on until Wilkerson is able to actually start an investigation with Mansfield concerning the murders. However, Mansfield seems to possess a rock-hard alibi from possessing pay stubs that would actually place him in Illinois at the time of the murders in Villisca, Iowa.
Of course.
So, yeah, that works out for him. I feel like that would be kind of easy to stage, though. I don't know. I feel like it was just all in writing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, for sure.
Very, very sus, and seems like they would kind of need a little bit more in order to get Mansfield off the hook. But honestly, that's all he really needed back then. They were just like, okay, all right, you're good.
Yeah.
So this then absolved him in the eyes of the law from receiving any kind of guilt. And later on, Mansfield would end up suing Wilkerson and winning $2,200 in court for his false accusations against him. Now, this estimates in the modern day economy to be about $60,000. So it's a good amount of change, for sure.
So we have the rich guy, the senator, what's his name?
Yep, Senator Frank F. Jones.
Frank F. Jones. And
Yep.
then we have this Mansfield guy who could have been a hitman.
Exactly.
To cover for Jones.
For Jones, yes.
But I was thinking, I know last week when we were talking about evidence being destroyed and everything, one of the things that really stuck out to me is there townspeople were taking pictures. And I guess you said the police actually destroyed the camera that some of those pictures were taken with.
Yeah.
And you were like, well, that could lead to a suspect, perhaps someone was getting paid off.
Yes, exactly. It seems almost staged for the cops to just conveniently be so sloppy to the point where they even not take pictures for themselves, but even smash the only photos that were taken of the crime scene that day.
And we know Frank F. Jones is pretty wealthy, so he definitely could have bribed
the
them.
guy was kind of a big cat in town, obviously. Senator Frank F. Jones.
He can hire a hitman. He can
he had his own business,
pay off
successful.
The police.
Yeah, for sure. That's a very likely possibility that definitely could have happened. And so it's definitely some food for thought on who you may think could have been it.
Yeah.
Because these are the three, so far we've discussed 2 out of 3, but these are the 3 main guys that we've talked about that they've pretty much gotten the most evidence on.
Yeah.
That seem the most likely could have been associated with these murders. Now, although Mansfield wasn't exactly directly associated with the Moore family, his family died conveniently a little bit later, almost the exact same way. And Mansfield was just left by himself. He's just conveniently not there,
Yeah.
Too much seems to lie all into place.
But this next guy also has lots of pretty solid evidence. It's really hard. I don't know.
Yes, it's very, very hard. And this is absolutely a game of who done it. It's very complicated. So going into the final suspect, we have these 2 dead ends of prime suspects for the investigators. However, there also remains to be one more that was actually present with the Moores the night of the murders. The suspect is known to be 57-year-old Reverend George Jacqueline Kelly. Now, Reverend Kelly was known to be a traveling preacher who actually originated in England and moved with his wife and settled in Macedonia, Iowa. And in 1912, Reverend Kelly was invited and known to attend the Children's Day exercises at the same Presbyterian church as the Moores on June 9th, 1912. And this is the last night the Moores were ever seen alive. Now, not only is this a fact, but the people of Villisca have also testified that they found George Jacqueline Kelly to be a huge creeper. And he was also known to send explicit images of himself in the mail to people and known to be a peeping Tom.
That's creepy.
Yeah. And above all else, the investigators were told that Reverend Kelly was known to stalk the Moore family.
He stalked them. Like we talked about last week. He knows when they're gone. He knows when they're sleeping. So far,
I mean, I feel like out of all 3 of these suspects, those are the biggest, that's the biggest red flag I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
You know? They're just not like giant arrows pointing at him. And also, the same morning of the murders, at approximately 5 a.m., Reverend Kelly was known to board a train in Villisca, leaving the town. He was also known to elicit suspicious behavior and was expressing bizarre interest with an older couple on board, talking about how a family was just found murdered in Villisca that morning. This probably would be totally fine, except for the fact that the bodies weren't even discovered until several hours after Reverend Kelly boarded that train that morning. Now, with the fact that he was present the night of the murders in Villisca, it's rumored that he was a creep and a stalker, and his sudden rush to leave early the next morning, and hearsay talk about the murders before it was even released to the public, he became a prime suspect for investigators finally at the time.
Yeah, that's sus.
I feel like you just needed one of those, and that was fine.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous that it needed all this to culminate. So, within the weeks after, Reverend Kelly was known to have conversed with the investigators, as well as members of the family of the deceased, concerning his curiosity of the murders over a series of letters.
Like he's creepily obsessed with this case or something.
Yeah, he's infatuated with it. Psycho infatuated with it.
Which doesn't mean he necessarily committed it. That's just obvious.
Yeah.
Red flag. You're pointing fingers at yourself.
Maybe he was trying to do it for the fame, but he was the only actually suspect out of the 3 that we're talking about so far who was actually there the night of the murders.
That's true.
And he was known to stalk the Moore family. Mm-hmm. This can't just all be a coincidence. Mm-hmm. It's too perfect. Obviously, with these letters and Kelly just poking his nose and all of this, this personal stuff crossing the line, the investigators find this obviously suspicious.
Yeah.
And so they decide to question him on things that only the killer would have known. So Reverend Kelly seemed to have responded in great detail to what he knew. However, he did end up mixing some details himself, going into, that he heard suspicious noises around the house at the time of the murders, as well as even possibly witnessing the murders himself. The investigators were also able to determine, investigating, how there's gouges in the ceiling, because we know that the killer bludgeoned everybody with the backside of the axe, so that means that the sharp side would be pointed up to the ceiling.
Yeah.
And as the killer would swing up, he would cause that sharp side to gouge in the ceiling. And they were able to tell through forensic, research that he was left-handed. So guess who also was left-handed?
Reverend Kelly.
Reverend Kelly. Exactly.
How do they really know that that it was committed with someone who's left-handed?
So if, for an example, in one of the bedrooms, the head of the bed, they knew that the body was found at the head of the bed, and right above the head, it was in a corner, and right above the head was a gouge mark.
Yeah.
And it was just a wall right there. And so the only way that they would have been able to hit the face while coming up is if the killer came over his left shoulder. And we all know if you swing an axe, you swing over your dominant arm.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you're right-handed, it would have came over his right shoulder, which definitely would not have gouged the ceiling. Mm-hmm. And they can tell that in several other rooms where there are gouges, which are still there to this day, which you can see if you go tour the place. It's really crazy. Yeah, exactly. So Reverend Kelly was left-handed. However, the investigators were never able to arrest Kelly for the murders until 5 years later in 1917. It is known that law enforcement was able to get a confession out of him, but in his confession, Reverend Kelly even said that he heard words clear as day telling him to slay utterly in a whisper tone and to suffer the children and come unto me. Like this, this is what he says. He's
That's
crazy.
Creepy, yeah.
Yeah, he's a psycho.
He straight up confessed to it.
And it's a confession for sure.
Still are like, who did it?
Like, it's obvious whoever killed this guy was not mentally right.
Yeah.
And then we have a guy confessing in a way that obviously makes him not mentally right. He was even, like, before all this happened, he was in a mental institution for a period of time for being so creepy.
Yeah.
Like, he was arrested and they put him in a mental institution, and he came out, and then he got arrested again for these murders, trying to put him on trial. And so time eventually passes on after this confession, and Reverend Kelly ends up getting off scot-free.
How?
In court, his lawyer was able to successfully recant his confession. They claim police brutality during the investigation. However, like, the investigation did take like hours and hours. It's suspected that it was, conducted in an unethical manner. They were maybe too rough.
He committed a murder in an unethical, rough manner.
I don't think it's that's not unfair to do. However, they did end up deciding to acquit him and recant his confession. And so it was eventually ended up being decided that Reverend Kelly lacked the capability, both mentally and physically, of being able to commit the Villisca murders.
We just said he's literally crazy.
I know.
How does that mean that he was not mentally capable of doing something crazy?
I don't know. Like, it's so, like, obvious. Everything lines up so perfectly. Like, it just does not make sense. Like, and I don't think, like, in this scenario, like, anybody would have been paid off. I feel like, I don't think Reverend Kelly, like, made that much money. He's obviously a creeper. I mean, have you seen him?
No. Let me look a picture up.
Okay. Quite the looker,
huh? He's so short. Like, look at his wife.
I know. Oh, yeah. I've never even seen. Oh, my gosh. Oh, I got to show you guys that.
That's like the only picture
of
him. He has a weird shaped head.
Yeah. No, imagine
that's like legit
him,
the only picture.
But then, like, an English accent coming out, and saying creepy things and, like, being all suspicious and, like, I don't know. Like, I can't imagine him, like, just...
Yeah, he got a creepy smile.
Being a complete psycho. He just looks like a psycho. He looks and talks the part. He confessed.
Like Pee Wee Herman or something.
Right? Yeah. And he was a creeper, too. In real life, yeah, he was a creeper. So...
He's got the looks.
So they think he's not mentally and physically being able to commit the Villisca murders. And it's believed that later on he ends up moving out of town with his wife since he got off scot-free. And he's like, I'm getting out of here.
Yeah.
And the last thing that we have heard of him is he must have settled somewhere around New York.
Okay.
Yeah. So see ya. Probably that was the murder. But who do you think did it? Okay. Who do you think did it? Out of all three?
I don't know. I feel like...
You got the senator, the possible hitman, and...
It's weird. Yeah, it's weird with the senator and the hitman, that situation, and how there's, like, other murders tied to Mansfield that had very similar...
Yeah.
Like, key notes, like...
Yeah.
The lamp and the bowl of water and the axe and all that, like, how is that not committed by the same person?
Yeah, exactly.
And, like, the strained relationship between the senator and Josiah.
Yeah.
But I feel like we have a lot of evidence for Reverend Kelly.
A little too much evidence.
Yeah.
Like too much to where you can't say it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
You think it's Reverend Kelly. I think it's Reverend Kelly.
Yeah.
And
I guess if I had to pick one.
Town of Villisca just let him walk off because they roughed him up too much. What? So, yeah, ridiculous. You guys, all creeps watching this, comment who you guys think it was. Because, I mean, we have our opinions. Maybe you know of some other suspect that we don't know of.
Yeah.
Put it down in the comments, who you think it is. It's fine if, we didn't talk about him. But, yeah, we'd be really curious to see what you guys think.
There's still people that, go and try to solve it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a little late for that, but...
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's fun. We're talking about it now. You just...
I don't know.
There's armchair detectives out there, just curious.
I don't know.
So this brings us to our coffee break.
Yes.
So, Renae, what are we drinking today?
We are drinking some just nice, ice-cold caramel macchiatos.
Yep.
It's finally getting nice weather here.
Yeah, just
Wanted
starting
to do
spring.
Something ice, yeah. I feel like it's, another staple. If you pretty much, everyone likes caramel macchiatos. I mean, unless you don't like sweet coffee, but it's just, basic vanilla, caramel, that flavor.
Yeah.
So... Going into our caramel macchiatos, we have vanilla syrup. If you didn't know, caramel macchiatos are actually made with vanilla syrup, not caramel.
There's no caramel flavoring at all in it.
Well, so it has a caramel drizzle on top. So there's caramel in it.
It's legit caramel.
But you would think if it's caramel macchiato, it's just coffee, milk, caramel.
Yeah.
But actually has vanilla, which goes well with caramel. Milk, and then espresso. Mm-hmm. We made ours iced. You can have it hot. Also, another interesting thing about macchiatos is you do the milk first.
Okay.
And then the espresso. Versus a latte, you do the espresso first and then the milk.
Yep. And then it all just kind of mixes together.
Yeah.
If you do the espresso first.
Right. If you do the milk first, it actually leaves it in layers.
Yeah, it creates a gradient.
Uh-huh.
It's really cool.
If you ever before it gets mixed, if you ever see a macchiato, you'll see the layers.
Yeah, I think not only does it taste good, it looks cool, but more importantly, one of my favorite things about the caramel macchiato is it's an experience. Because depending on how you drink it, whether you drink it from the straw, let's say you're drinking a caramel macchiato from the straw. So your straw is going to be all the way at the bottom where all the sweet milk is. And so you're drinking the sweet milk and you're taking it in, and the more and more you're drinking, it's getting more bitter, and it starts to taste more like coffee, cocoa, whatever the beans are roasted with. And then by the end, you're just kind of just drinking coffee, not much milk in it at all. And so it's awesome. It's like a whole experience in a drink. I didn't think a drink could be, that fancy.
Yeah.
But,
you're actually supposed to, I guess, technically drink it like that.
Because if you just mix it, you just got a latte.
It it's just a vanilla latte with caramel drizzle.
Yeah. All you guys, if you mix up your macchiato whenever you get it, you're a barista. Because you just made a latte.
Yeah.
You just turned it into a different drink. So
yeah. I like to mix mine up. Maxwell likes to get the experience.
I do. Well, I mean, that's how it's meant to be drunk. If I want a latte, make me a latte. That's what I'll ask for. However,
that's true.
You said they're cheaper, right?
Yeah. So hack. If you like caramel macchiatos, you want to say, I want a caramel macchiato. Or, just order a vanilla latte with caramel drizzle. And you'll save yourself
if you're going to mix it anyway, just order a latte because you'll probably save money.
But it might not look as cool.
It won't, yeah. And so you can drink it from the bottom and you'll get sweet milk first. Or you can just drink it from the top. Say if it was hot, you're not going to drink it with a straw.
I was going to say, this is ice.
Start with
hot's a little different, probably.
Yeah, you'll start with more bitter, and then it'll get sweeter and sweeter towards the end, which is also really good. I like to definitely drink that during the wintertime.
Yeah.
Because you're left with a really sweet taste. Mm-hmm. So it kind of makes me think of sugar cookies and stuff. like during Christmas time. It's really fun.
Yeah.
It's probably one of my favorite drinks. I would recommend if you're trying to get into drinking like just coffee. So if you're just trying to drink like plain coffee, but you're not there yet because you can't get used to the coffee flavor, this is a good way to start.
Definitely sweet, yeah.
Yeah, because it starts out really sweet and it kind of eases your palate into drinking just plain coffee. And it's only just for a second because most of it is kind of already mixed and it gets really sweet.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, definitely if you're just trying to get into coffee at all, good place to start is a caramel macchiato.
Really easy to make at home. One of my favorites. So.
Yeah, for sure. It's basic, but it's a classic. Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
So I guess that ends our coffee break, and let's get back.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. So let's get back to the story.
Okay.
So, Renae, would you consider yourself a skeptic or believer in the paranormal? Like ghosts and like demonic entities moving things across the room, throwing people across the room, scratching them, all this stuff.
Yeah. I'd say probably a skeptic.
A skeptic.
Yeah.
Why?
I just feel like I always have to find, or I can't always find, a logical explanation for something weird that happens.
Okay.
I haven't had a lot of weird things happen to me.
Yeah.
And so like, I don't know, but I also feel like if you go in like wanting to find those things, that then opens up a door for those things to happen to you. And that's how, I don't know, like all those ghost stories and stuff, or those ghost shows. Like,
but do you think it's like possible to be like physically touched or maneuvered by something that's not physically there?
I don't know.
You don't know.
Like,
you don't know?
I'd say just because I don't have the evidence for myself, I would probably say just no.
You just need to have the evidence.
Yeah, like
you need to see
I don't
it to
care what
believe
other
it.
people say. I don't care what the ghost shows say. Like, that could all be fake.
Well, you've had actually something happen in your childhood, right? You've had something happen where you feel like you could not explain.
But I was also like a little kid.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. Tell the creeps what happened.
So I was probably like 10 years old, if that. I honestly don't even remember. Sleeping in my bed. I used to be scared to sleep in my own bed for a really long time. I'd always end up like getting up in the middle of the night and going and sleeping with my parents. But I had a bunch of stuffed animals. I love stuffed animals. And I had like a bookshelf with just rows like packed of stuffed animals.
Yeah.
And there's several shelves. And there was this one particular stuffed animal. I never really played with it. It wasn't like a special one to me for any reason. But it was like a stuffed elk.
Was it an elk or a moose?
I think it was an elk. I think it was from like Estes or the mountains or something, like Rocky Mountain National Park or something.
No, it was an elk if it was from Estes, yeah.
Okay, there's moose up there too.
I know, but you mostly just see elk walking around like nothing. And
I'm pretty sure it was
on
an
all
elk.
the merch in Estes Park, if you guys have never been there, it's covered with elk stuff.
Yeah.
Like just all elk stuff. I mean, there's some moose there. I've never seen a moose in Estes. I have seen a moose in Rocky Mountain National Park, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was an elk. And it was like in the middle row. So there was like a shelf above it, below it. And like in the very back, like behind a bunch of other stuffed animals, everything was packed in there. I go to bed that night. The next morning I wake up and I have this stuffed elk in my bed, like at the foot of my bed. I don't remember exactly where it was.
At the foot of your bed.
I don't know. It could have been up by me. I don't know.
Where was this elk? Like with all the other stuffed animals?
Yeah. I'm like, I did not pick this elk out like before I went to bed.
Yeah.
I was like, maybe my mom did. I don't know. But yeah, this elk was all the way in the back. Like I remember like left corner of the shelf. There was other stuffed animals around it. There's like a shelf right above it.
So it's really hard to get to.
Like but nothing else was moved
Turned
though.
over. It was just a perfect little spot where that elk was.
Yeah, just a little hole.
And did you ask your mom if she did
Yeah.
it? And your parents?
I didn't really think much of it as like a little kid, so I was just like, Mom, did you put this elk in my bed?
Yeah.
And she was like, no. And then I just didn't even think much about it.
And then you're like, okay, no, it's fine. Maybe I'm just a
but,
sleepwalker.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. Like,
That's your logical explanation for it? You're a sleepwalker?
well, I was 10 years old. I wasn't thinking about it being anything creepy. I've never had anything
but
else
now
creepy
looking
happen.
back, like, what could it have
I
been?
know, you're right. I guess. I don't know. Like,
I know. It's hard for you to really, like, imagine that actually happening. Like, it has to have some logical explanation for it to make sense to you, for you to fully accept it.
yeah.
I get it. And I feel like I've never had anything like that happen to me.
And you're still
I'm
like,
totally fine with accepting that was a ghost. Yeah. Or that was something.
I don't know. Like I said, I was little. I could have, like, imagined something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's why I call myself a skeptic, is just because it's like, I'm not so quick to just be like, oh, that was a ghost.
Well, I've been in the house that you grew up in, that house.
Yeah.
Numerous times. Uh-huh. We don't live very far from it. And your parents still live there today. Mm-hmm. I've never experienced anything paranormal in there. So maybe it was just, a coincidence. Maybe because your brother was living there too. Uh-huh. Was your sister living there?
Nope.
So maybe it was your brother trying to mess with you. Who knows? Or maybe your dad did it. And he just
And like,
forgot.
if someone like was sleepwalking or something too, like the other stuffed animals would have been messed up, which is weird.
You think your mom was trying to scare you? I know she's a believer.
I know. I was going to say, like, my mom, she can kind of be superstitious, and
She's a believer.
She claims she's seen things before at other houses, but never at this house. So that's also why I'm like, it was nothing.
And what did you tell her?
I think what I actually think I told myself as a little kid as an explanation for it is like, God put it there or something. Like, God moved it to put in my bed just as like a sweet little act or something. So I wasn't lonely. I don't know.
But that's still a little scary. Like, even if
it is creepy, but like,
if I just knew,
I believe in God.
That was God doing that. I mean, I think just natural reaction would just be fear. Like, oh my gosh, like this is actually happening. Like, I would be shocked.
Yeah.
And you're just like, there's God doing it, No.
But that's not scary. Like, I'm
still,
not scared
it doesn't
of God.
matter. Like, I know, but like, you've never seen something like that happen. Like, it wouldn't shock you.
Just imagine like waking up as like that thing was like levitating across the room.
I would be trembling. Even if I heard the voice from God himself, I think that would make it worse, and I'd poop my pants.
Yeah.
Because we believe in God.
I think that was my explanation.
Yeah, if something like that happened, oh my gosh. Yeah, then that's how it made sense to you as a kid, which is fine. We'll never know.
Maybe we'll know aside from that, I've never had creepy things happen to me. So I'm just like, I choose not to like dabble with that stuff. So therefore I think it's just, maybe that stuff could happen, but I think it's also can be a mind thing. I think you can just, I don't know, think yourself into things, and you can open doors, but
yeah. I mean, and so, yeah, it's fine. It's fine if you're a skeptic. Yeah. I'm obviously a believer.
And I think it's cool because we can
there's
have the
value
different
in that.
perspectives.
Yeah, there's value in that
in
in our
about these
channel
things.
for sure.
Yeah.
Because maybe not all of you creeps out there are believers, and maybe not all of you are skeptics. It's a mixed match of both, and that's fine.
Yeah.
You guys get to hear from both of us, and we get to have good talks about it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Go Team Believers. Let's get back to our story where we're talking about the paranormal investigations at the Villisca Axe murder houses in modern day. So, paranormal investigators Chris Dedman and Roland Sains conducted an investigation at the Villisca Axe murder house before the arrival of Zach Bagans and his team for Ghost Adventures. Now, in an interview with Zach Bagans, one of their first comments about their investigation was that just by approaching the house, they immediately began to feel some kind of sense of negativity, like just flowing from the house. It just made them not feel right just before they even got in the house. And further on in their investigation, one of the first things that they did was try to utilize a spirit box in the parlor room to see if they can get any feedback through EVP, or electronic voice phenomenon. And within just the first few minutes of using their spirit box, they get almost an immediate response. Deadman and Sanes both ask the spirit box, "Who's with you?" Like as if they're talking to somebody, like whether it's a spirit or whatever, and asking, are they alone? Almost immediately, there's a voice that audibly pronounces the name Reverend Kelly.
Okay.
I know.
If you guys have ever watched these ghost shows, it's not like it's not like you and me talking, Reverend Kelly.
It's not clear as day.
And they're using all this fancy technology. We don't know what this technology is doing. This could just be fabricating these words and making you think things. Also, they put subtitles on these shows, so you read it as they say it. So, of course, your mind is going
yes, that is like a tactic you see on like social media, TikTok and stuff, where, they put a caption on the bottom and they play a sound and you hear one thing and then they change the caption and then you hear a completely other thing. And it doesn't matter how many times you play it.
So if they didn't have the subtitles and you heard it, I mean...
Maybe you heard something else.
I'll admit, I thought I heard like Kelly or something similar to Kelly.
For sure. Because you can see and hear it on the Ghost Adventures episode where they talk to Deadman and Sanes.
Yeah, Maxwell was watching the other day and I heard Kelly, but it's not like clear as day Reverend Kelly. And that's just another thing. I'm just like, for me to believe, I need it to be like clear as day.
Yeah, which is fair. So the two investigators continued on with their questioning to the spirit box with little to no answers making any sense. However, investigator Chris Deadman suddenly gets an idea. He tells the spirit box, "I command that you tell me your name." Deadman and Sanes get a chill that travels down their spines when they hear the sudden name, Legion, emitted from the spirit box. Now, at that moment, they realized that they were not speaking to what they believed to be just an ordinary spirit. They were conversing with an ancient biblical demon that was likely planning to cause them harm, or so they believe. So it wasn't long before the two investigators realized that they have overstayed their welcome and decided to leave the house. And as Deadman was leaving the house, he suddenly felt as if all the wind from his body was just suddenly knocked out. He then felt a burning sensation on his back, which caused him to ask Sanes to pull up his shirt so he can look, and revealed 3 long claw marks running down his back and swiping to the right, making the shape of a letter L. And this claw mark can be seen on the episode of Ghost Adventures. So be sure to check it out if you can. Both Chris Deadman and Roland Sanes finally noted at the end of their segment on the show that it was an unforgettable night that they would never wish to relive ever again, which is fair if that did happen.
Yeah.
Because that's some serious stuff.
Yeah.
Now, on to the Ghost Adventures episode, the meat and potatoes. So
Zach Bacons is a follower of the channel, if you guys didn't know. Just kidding.
No, I wish. Zach, if you ever watch this, man, hit us up. Put us on one of your episodes, please.
This episode, there's just some comical stuff in it.
Yeah.
No offense. Right. It's just like 2012,
yeah,
just some of the editing and stuff.
It's just dated, man. It's just a different time back then, different time. All right, so on season 4, episode 12 of Ghost Adventures, Zach Bacons and his paranormal investigative team filmed an episode on the Villisca Axe Murder House. So during the initial part of the investigation, Zach brings in a skeptic named Roy Marshall, who is a local of the town as well. And he does an EVP session with them. So Zach and Roy attempt to communicate with anything present within the first floor bedroom, which is the bedroom that Lena and Ina were killed in, for nearly 30 minutes, until suddenly they begin to hear creaks coming from the stairs. And these creaks were so loud that they can be heard on their episode with enhanced audio. And later on, during the EVP session, Zach and his team believed that they were actually able to pick up a voice through the recorder telling them, "I killed 6 kids." Now, this EVP can be heard on the episode as well as with enhanced audio. Now, it did take them some time. It's kind of hard to hear. And they show in the video, in the episode, it took them a long time to figure out that's what they were saying.
That's
so,
what I mean.
Did it really say it?
They're just making themselves think that's what it said.
I don't know. But what if they did? What if they did?
Okay.
Probably majority signs point to it didn't say that. But what if? Just what if?
Are you becoming a skeptic, Maxwell?
No, I'm giving you guys fair play. So this EVP can be heard on the episode with enhanced audio. However, it should also be mentioned that not only is this chilling phrase heard, but it sounds like whoever was saying it was out of breath. Even skeptic Roy Marshall notices this detail and thinks that it sounds like it was someone who could have just finished swinging an axe.
Okay.
Creeps. I know you guys are eating this up. It's creepy. And it's on the episode.
It could be creepy.
Could be. It is. Whether it happened or not, you hear it. I watched that show. Come on. You watch that show, and then you it's time to go walk out the dog, and you're like, can you do it? I'm scared.
I think the facts are scary.
It is scary. No matter what, this is a spooky story because it actually happened.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I mean.
That's the great part about true crime is it's not just fan fiction. It's real.
Yeah. That's the part that's creepy.
Maybe some of this is real too. We probably will never know. So, in addition to analyzing this piece of evidence that they found on the EVP, while they're analyzing this, they get at the same time a recording within the house of a door that is wide open that suddenly slams shut. And right before it, they also catch on audio footsteps, like a man with dress shoes or boots walking around upstairs.
That could have just been their friend.
What friend? The killer?
Someone else from the team. It's a show.
Okay, it's fair. It's fair because we weren't there, but I'm saying they do have video of the door shutting.
There was fishing line. I saw it.
You didn't see it, but there could have been fishing line because honestly, the quality of the video was not the best. It was like a deer trail cam. I mean, it was like in the you think like early 2010s or something?
I don't know.
So, I mean,
Hollywood.
It was yeah, probably not the best piece of evidence, but
fake.
It can be found on the episode of Ghost Adventures, and you guys can go tune in and see it.
It's entertaining.
It is definitely
I'll give it
entertaining.
That. If it's not real, I mean, at least it's interesting.
It is, and it still gives me the chills. And additionally, there's tons of more chilling evidence, quote unquote evidence, that Zach and his team gather from their investigation at the Villisca murder house, especially whenever Zach is alone in the attic with the alleged murder weapon. Yeah. Conducting an EVP session. So if you creeps want to learn anything more about this investigation, you'll just have to go and watch the episode yourself. But it's definitely worth the watch.
All this paranormal talk, it got me thinking, what does this have to do with this murder? It's already creepy. The murder is already creepy. Are we just trying to exploit that by making ghost stories out of it? What do you think? Do you think this house was always haunted and maybe whatever force was there compelled somebody to commit the murder? Or do you think it wasn't until after the murder that it became haunted and that spirit is what haunts, is the person who killed the family?
So I think that if all that stuff on the Ghost Adventures show was real, if all that evidence was actually real, and that house is haunted, that house was not haunted before that incident in 1912. And I don't think that they were, the investigators were just talking to Joe Schmo, like the killer or the victims, I don't think it works like that. I think...
You think, like, because this was such a terrible act, like, that evil, like, opened up a door?
Yeah, I think, almost, like some kind of, like, in a metaphorical way, it just kind of just left like a fingerprint in some kind of weird way. That, so say, like, I don't think that they were talking to people. I think that, if anything, they were talking to a demon that probably had malicious intent. And it could very well have deceived them with different voices, claiming it was a little girl or the killer or a boy or whatever. So, I mean, it's very, very risky what they do, for a living, if all this is real.
That's what I mean. I feel like they choose to get into that stuff and just, like, open their minds and...
Yeah, it's risky.
Bodies to these things.
It's like so spiritual.
Then I think things
thrill
can happen.
Seekers.
But just
exactly.
Why would you want to do that? That's creepy.
They're just curious and just have to know. Like they got
dangerous.
Some itch that just needs to be itched.
Yeah.
It potentially can be very, very dangerous. And they could have been, if it was a demon, it could have been maybe not Legion, but maybe it was like, I'll trick them and think like they don't know the difference if they're talking to Legion or not, so I'm just going to claim to be Legion because everybody knows Legion. I mean, like it's...
I don't know Legion.
They made a movie. I think... I don't know who was in it, but there's a movie called Legion, and it was about the demon Legion. Like there's evidence of this demonic entity named Legion existing. So, who knows? Like, I think... if this did happen, like if this was real, that would probably be the most likely scenario. So everybody, let us know your thoughts and comments. Like if you guys think that this place was actually haunted, like it's okay if you're skeptical about it, and it's okay if you're 100% a believer in everything that happened on that show. Let us know. We want to know. We want to talk to you guys. So just let us know down in the comments on YouTube, or you can email us at coffeeandthecreeps.info @gmail.com. Yeah. So, like I said, there's so much more evidence and resources out there where you can learn all about, the folklore, additional suspects of the murder in Villisca, more paranormal experiences and investigations and other similar things. However, this is all that we have for you guys today. We hope that you creeps enjoyed our retelling of the story and investigations conducted, and we hope that you will tune in next week for another chilling story on our Coffee and the Creeps show. Please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already, and it's one of the best ways to support our channel, and it's free. If you like this video, then go ahead and give it a like, and we'll try to give you guys more content of it. That's a good way to communicate to us if we're doing the right thing. And if we're not, let us know in our email. Have any suggestions for, other things that we can do, something that you want us to talk about? Let us know at coffeeandthecreeps.info @gmail.com. And thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Bye.
See ya.